Welcome to the Terrible Podcast with your hosts from SteelersDepot.com, where you can find all your latest and greatest Steelers news. It's Dave Bryan and Alex Kozora, always lit, talking Steelers. And now, here's Dave and Alex.
Welcome to the Terrible Podcast, Season 13, Episode 55. He's Dave Bryan. I'm Alex Kozora, SteelersDepot.com. Glad you guys are back with us here for this Wednesday show. Dave, I know we had our Tuesday kind of a emergency-ish podcast coming off the Monday games. Maybe a little less to talk about overall, but still plenty for us to discuss. How you doing?
Doing okay on this Wednesday. Where's the week gone already? This is a short week. It's a short week for us as well too. And like Tomlin, not much sleep in there. While it's on my mind at the top of the show here, real quick, what do you think about the NFL and having two bye weeks and having the bye weeks on kind of a rotating schedule where, you know, I guess all four, like let's say the AFC North, all four teams would have their bye weeks on the same, on the same week if they had two and had some sort of rotating schedule like that. I don't know how that would impact the obviously the NFL contracts because they want to show as many games as possible. But I don't know what caused me to think about that today, other than the fact that I would think these guys, you see some of these later bye weeks in the NFL because we still have bye weeks going on, in the NFL. Normally in the past, it feels like those have been wrapped up by Thanksgiving, right? I just wonder what it would do to the competitive balance and all like that. Personally, I would be a fan of it, but you're probably adding another week on to the season. Have you given much thought about that, or what would your initial thoughts be on two bye weeks a season?
I know it's been discussed just in league circles and media circles a little bit as the league pushed for that more recent 17-game season. And I imagine whenever the eventual push for an 18-game season comes, you'll probably get that second bye week. I support it. I think players to go play 17 games with 1 week off is just so physically demanding, and to have an extra break in there, there's probably, if you have to push the Super Bowl back a week, everybody's going to live. It's fine. So, short answer, yeah, I support two bye weeks.
Yeah, I would be as well too, and I would expect it. I mean, look at the two teams that are actually not that you can read a lot into it, but the two teams that are on byes this week are the Cardinals and the Panthers, and they're both 4-8. They both have had, obviously talent issues, but a couple of injury issues as well too. I wonder if having if they would have had a bye week in there at this point would have made a difference in at least one game. You know what I'm saying?
Probably not for the Panthers, considering the state. Do they even have coaches anymore? They have fired so many coaches, and so many coaches are now leaving to go to Matt Rule in Nebraska. I feel like there's not anybody left in that building.
And even it looks like, you're right. Even next week, Alex, there's 6 teams on byes.
Really?
And
wow.
it's next week's week 14 of the season. Just it feels off, and the whole 17 games. I'm old school too. I don't like the unevenness of the records and all like that. And I would imagine it'd still take a couple of years, because the CBA is not negotiated yet and all like that. It would take some kind of probably special agreement at owners meetings, and then obviously the players union had to vote on and all like that. But I would like to see, if you're going to go 17, why not go 18? But if you go 18, give these guys give these teams 2 byes a year.
Sure, I think that'll be mandated. They may try to even cut the preseason to 2 games to go 18 games. Actually, I think in the CBA,
I'm not a fan of that.
Well, I know you and me both. I think the CBA says you can't play more than 20 games in a season. So actually, I think they probably would push or would cut the preseason to 2 to fulfill that CBA clause.
Man, I like those. For someone that you get to see these guys in training camp and all like that, and get to form a pretty good opinion about stuff. But guys like me, I really utilize the tape during that preseason to kind of get a handle on bottom end of the roster guys and all. So, I mean, I would understand if they did that. It wouldn't be the end of me. But man, I like a league. And plus, as you pointed out in the past as well too, man. give these guys a chance to make the team at the bottom end of the roster. Yeah.
Right. I mean, you think it's important for you. It's important for the 88th, 89th,
Right.
90th man on that roster to have 2 preseason games, one where the starters are going to play for their tune-up game. You really squeeze that opportunity more and more. So I wouldn't be a fan of it, but I know that's the direction the league eventually, probably sooner than later, is going to push towards. But whenever they do that, I think 2 bye weeks is important. I'm with you. I hate the unevenness. You got 17 games, 7 playoff teams. I want even numbers. That's what I need. My very OCD attitude.
I hear you. Good for you. We share a lot of unhealthy qualities. I think.
Yes, absolutely. All right, let's talk Steelers here. One minor roster move made Tuesday. Practice squad move. The team releasing wide receiver Josh Malone and signing defensive lineman Renell Wren. These guys have bounced on and off the practice squad throughout the year, so no new names here. Just kind of a swapping and rotation. Maybe that could mean that Miles Boykin is getting healthier. Maybe a minor footnote there. Who knows? But do want to pass that along that Malone for now out and Wren back in.
Yeah, look, I think that's the biggest takeaway that you just said right there. With Malone being cut loose, it's probably a positive sign when it comes to Miles Boykin. And boy, they could use that guy back on special teams, right?
Very much
and
so.
I have a feeling we're going to talk about that a little bit today.
Yeah, late last night, I was trying to look over some of the kick coverage stuff, and even though I love special teams, it can be hard to decipher what went wrong on some of that stuff, but I have a couple ideas we'll discuss in a little bit. I know we briefly touched on in the Tuesday podcast, Mike Tomlin's Tuesday presser, but let's review things one more time. Anything else that maybe has come to mind over the last, 24 hours or so in terms of what Tomlin said? Again, injuries, not much of a standpoint or update there on Najee Harris, and didn't he provide any updates on Jaylen Warren for his potential availability in this weekend's game against Atlanta? I did like Tomlin's comments about Mason Cole. I think Mason Cole is one of the more underrated Steelers on this team. Not that he's a great center. He's not the next, Dirk Dawson or Marquise Pouncey or Webster or anything like that. But, and maybe it's a bit of a product of watching Kendrick Green struggle so mightily last year. The expectations kind of set so low. But I just like Cole being that steady, consistent guy, a good leader, and just a good presence on a pretty young and green and new overall offensive line.
Yeah, it's funny that you bring that up because Mason Cole was on my mind this morning as well, too, especially going back through the All-22 tape. And my thought is, can you win with Mason Cole? And, I talked a couple of weeks ago saying, get it into the draft, man. This team could probably really use a center or really give me any offensive lineman at this point. And I think I kind of said, man, give me that guy in the middle there. But I think you need to take into account that, man, Mason Cole is a tough dude. How much better could he have played had he not been dinged up? Maybe this year. And he did. I thought overall in this game against the Colts, I thought he played a good game. And I guess my question would be, and he's obviously, I think, under contract for 2 more years after this, right?
Right. 3-year deal. He signed.
Right. Yeah. Can you get at least one? Can you win next year, at least with next year, with a guy like Mason Cole, a very Jeff Harding's, who was the other one? The other center mixed in there. That was a free agent.
Well, it's not Mahan. I hope you're not saying Sean Mahan.
What Mahan? I'm trying to remember the
Cody Wallace.
No, not Cody Wallace. Yeah, I'll think of the name here in a little bit here, but just kind of that gritty journeyman experience. It seems like he does great with the line calls and knows what he's looking at and has enough experience with that. So yeah, I mean, long answer short or question short there. I mean, can you win with a guy like Mason Cole at least next season with him? And I think the short answer is yes, maybe.
I agree. I think yes, too. Here's what Tomlin said on Cole, saying, quote, "Man, he's a sharp guy. He brings a can-do attitude. He's a winner in his approach to ball. He's a good communicator. His football intellect is really solid and is helpful at that position in terms of the identification of protections and the picking up of blitz games." So all true there. Cole's a smart guy. And I just like, if you're a lineman, you got to be tough.
Hartwig is the other one I was talking about.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I think he's better than what Justin Hartwig was. But maybe I'm just colored by the penalty he took in the end zone on that safety in the Super Bowl. But yeah, I mean, Cole's never going to be anything more than probably an average type center. But to your point,
but can you win with him?
Yeah, to your question, can you win with him? Yeah, I think you can if you upgrade other areas. I think he can be a fine, consistent, steady presence in the middle.
And like you said, it it looks like a Ritz cracker compared to
I knew that was coming.
The saltine from last year, right? Man, what a mistake they made with Kendrick Green, man.
Yeah. I mean, again, I think part of it was Green just not transitioning well, but I think Pittsburgh really misevaluated how he won and his overall readiness. He was not a day one starter. They thought he was, and I still can't quite understand what they saw for them to believe that he was out of the box, ready to replace Marquise Pouncey.
Look, I've said it a couple of times. Since he was drafted, he really wasn't on my radar as a potential higher draft pick center. Coming out, he really wasn't, and a lot of it. I mean, I think I had crossed him off from kind of the measurable aspect alone. Thinking that and not only that, he only played the 4.5, 5 games at center in college. There, he was mostly a guard there, and had his warts even while he was a good guard. I thought an average guard. Maybe a little bit above average guard at Illinois, still had his warts and all. So that never was on my radar as a legitimate potential draft pick. Although if you go back and the research that we do during the offseason and who goes where in the pro days, he probably should have been. But
well, yeah, I screwed that up because I misidentified who was at that Illinois pro day. Because sometimes you're watching some grainy, News 9 local news station video, and you're trying to see who the guy is. And I screwed up and didn't realize that was Adrian Clem there. So had I done a better job of that, he would have been more on our radar. But regardless, again, I just go back to Tomlin saying that they wanted a guy that was day one ready, and a veteran, and somebody who could play center right away. And they chose an underclassman who was barely played center before. Just never made sense.
Yeah. So, going back to our conversation, I don't know, a couple of weeks ago, you said what position on the offensive line would you most want to address? I'll unless I got an ass kicker center, right there, right out of the chute. Remington, the guy that just really, and I can't tell you who even are the top centers right now at this point in the draft class because we're not there yet. But I would probably lean more guard or tackle right now.
That brings me into my next question and next comment that Mike Tomlin made nicely about Dan Moore Jr. and tough start in that Colts game, gets a holding call, allows a sack. And then I think things got better from there, going back to some of the all-22, some of the down blocks of push he got in the run game, I thought was impressive. Where are you at overall on Dan Moore? Is he a starter next year in your eyes? I mean, how much are you looking to try to upgrade that left tackle position? Where do you commit on Dan Moore Jr.?
Yeah, I think from what I've seen so far, and he actually graded out better than I would have probably graded him out on PFF. I mean, I think he was what was he?
Either top-rated lineman graded?
He was right behind Mason Cole.
Okay.
And Mason Cole looked really good in that game, I thought.
Right. And Moore had a tough start, and then after that, I mean, he was pretty good, I thought, after that first quarter.
I mean, they have a pass. They gave Dan Moore the highest pass blocking grade in that game. Didn't feel like it, I guess, but it did.
Yeah, again, it comes off that bad start kind of. But to Tomlin's point, he talked about the maturity of Moore growing and improving and not stacking those bad plays. So where are you at? I mean, do you think Dan Moore's the guy next year?
If I can upgrade him, I'm upgrading him.
But what does that mean in the sense of, are you using a first-round pick? Is it unless there's a left tackle staring you in the face in the first round or what?
I mean, if I could get a top left tackle in this class, I would do it.
Okay, so basically you're saying either draft one first round or go back with Dan Moore?
Yes.
Okay, because the odds of getting that top left tackle.
And then I would then obviously try to see if I can get a steal a little bit later in the fifth round, fifth round. Because look, some of these guys fall through the cracks. Some of these smaller school guys, Yeah,
I mean, right now there is no tackle depth, so at the least they got to add some depth here. I mean, they've been playing with fire with Trent Scott as their number 3 tackle all year long. Luckily, Moore and Okorafor stayed healthy.
Right. I would, if you can't get a top one, then I kind of think of that as kind of like the edge. Right. They've got to address the position because they've got to get better quality depth if they don't get another starter.
They could potentially, I suppose, sign a free agent too on the relative cheap.
Sure, but we've seen what they try to the gum that they try to stick in the hole of the dike in the past when they go that route.
Right. But you want someone who's versatile, and sometimes those college guys don't always have that versatility. Sometimes they do, but
you end up with
don't.
the Joe Haggs, you know.
I'll take it. I mean, I wouldn't hate a Joe Haig as a third tackle, to be honest with you. Trent Scott, I think, but
because we have been treated to Trent Scott now.
Trent Scott. I mean, poor Trent Scott. He hasn't played yet. You just kind of know if he does, it's look out.
But I guess that brings us back. Okay, if I think we both agree center's probably going to be very, very unlikely in the first round, right? At least from where we sit right now. Sure,
I agree.
Then that would lead us to either tackle or guard. And it sounds like you're more apt to try Dan Moore one more season.
I've been a little mixed. I'm still kind of watching this season unfold. I think I'm probably higher on Dan Moore than 95% of Steelers Nation, but I understand he's never going to be an elite left tackle. I mean, he's never going to be a Rashawn Slater or Andrew Whitworth or anything like that. He's going to be maybe at a ceiling at top 10. I'm talking like number 10 left tackle in football. I just think he's shown a lot of growth since the start of the year. He's independent hand use, his overall punch overall, getting comfortable with some of the sets in Pat Meyer's system. Grown a lot there. The run blocking's been good. I think he's a really hard worker and still a second-year guy. He's not a fifth-year veteran who's maxed out or anything like that. But I'm kind of wrestling with, to me, I go back to the first place I would upgrade is left guard, left tackle potentially, but I feel stronger about replacing left guard than I do left tackle.
I'm probably right along the same lines with you, unless I could get one of those high top tier tackles in this year's class. I think guard would be the next spot. And really, would you spend a top 15 pick maybe on a guard?
I mean, it typically is pretty high. Yeah, it depends on who. And now let me ask you just real quick. Some people, and I've gotten this question a lot. Would you potentially move Dan Moore inside to left guard?
I don't have. I mean, there's not enough there. I don't think to draw. It would be really hard to me. It's kind of hard to project that because he just hasn't. He doesn't have that. Does he play better in closed spaces when he's covered up by like, let's say a tight end? Probably short answer, yes. But does he have the mobility to play inside? Possibly.
Yeah, I think he's a mobile guy. I wrestle with this again. I wrestle with a lot of things, I guess, when it comes to Dan Moore. I understand the instinct there. I think he's a good run blocker. I think he gets a good push. I just think that transition is so much harder than people think. Just go from tackle to guard. It's a world of difference in terms of your set, your punch, your footwork, your eyes, your assignment, stuff like that. Plus, I think Moore's biggest weakness in pass pro is dealing with bull rushes and power rushes. And if you're playing left guard, you're going to see probably as many, if not more of those, some bigger, stronger people than you're going to see out on the edge. So I think there's probably some downsides there. So it's not an idea I get particularly excited about. I understand that let's say you draft a stud of a left tackle in the first round and you got a core for it right tackle. You could try more at left guard just to see how that works, to try to get something out of him, some value there. But it's not, I don't think it's the wave of magic wand idea that some people suggest.
Next time they get Meyer in, interview, which I don't know if we'll get one of those the rest of the year now, right? Usually you get them at the bye, the position coaches at the bye. Heard
from him once and weekly off season.
But, that would be an interesting angle to take at Canada to get away from we gotta score more points. We got to get more explosive plays. I would kind of hit him out of the blue with that. Is there any thought to maybe would Dan Moore project maybe as a guard? Just to see, because Todd Haley came off, oh
God, we doing this again?
Well, you sent me down there. It's all on you. But
fair.
I mean, at least he answered the question.
Who was the guy you wanted to move to guard for years?
It was
Hawkins. Gerald Hawkins. Yeah. What's he up to? He's still in the league. We talked about these shows being shorter, so I apologize for. Now I'm talking about Gerald Hawkins and where he's at. But
I don't remember seeing.
He's where's he at? He was pretty recent. He's on the looks like the Saints practice squad.
Okay, all right. Maybe. So he is. And is he playing guard or no?
He might have been released, but He was in the league as of this year. I don't know if he was guard or tackle. Anyway.
Let's see. I'm missing the Saints released Gerald Hawkins. Looks like maybe he was released early October.
Yeah, that's what I'm seeing. So I don't know what he was doing in New Orleans, but still relatively recently playing football. So anyway,
I get your point. You get mine. I mean, it's just such a hard projection with a guy that hasn't played inside, other than looking at what he's done, and his athletic traits, and like you said, his ability to handle the bull rush and stuff like that. I mean, you're not dealing with a Ramon Foster type here that can drop anchor all that great,
Right. Foster was just a bigger, more massive dude, and it helped him inside. So when you don't have a guy with experience, that you look at traits and skill set and try to project that out, and there's some merit to that, but I think there's going to be some unintended consequences to trying to kick Dan Moore inside.
You know what? It'd be interesting for you to do. Go back to what the Steelers look for and see kind of what maybe those his measurables match up to what the Steelers look for in guard. Just for, you can't say S word and grins on this podcast, but you
just for fun,
right?
Yeah,
just for fun.
I get what you're saying. Yeah, that's a good point, there. Can I pull that up here really quickly? I don't know.
Well, I'll pull his can you? If you pull the post, I'll pull his combine numbers.
All right, sure. Yeah. Now I lump this as interior offensive lineman, which may not be the best way for me to actually do this, because center and guards can be two different things, I suppose, overall. But that's what we have working with right now. So my loose requirements: 6'3", 300 plus, arm length 32 inches, 40 times, sub 5'4", bench of 25, vert of 24. I'm guessing Moore's going to check these.
Yeah,
boxes.
he checked them all. Yeah,
pretty athletic dude overall. So, I think he would fit on paper, but again, just do the traits translate?
Right.
There's probably some. It's obviously a big projection, no matter what. But I'm not in the camp of just move the guy inside. I think that's a pretty loose and too casual of an idea overall.
But we agree, probably guard would be, if they at this point right now, guard would probably be a little bit more likely than a tackle early.
Yeah, the thing is, though, to
Plus
your point,
that Penn State kid decided to go back to school too.
Right, which I'm not surprised. I was kind of hinting at that when people would ask me about it. He was 19 years old, a 1-year starter. Was he going to declare and come out? But the thing is, if you're taking an offensive lineman in the first round, odds are it's going to be a tackle over a guard. That's just the way things go. And if you're going to be picking, let's say, top 10, top 12,
you never see a guard
to get a tackle. Yeah, you don't see a guard that often, and plus you get a chance to get a good kind of pedigree tackle.
And as I've said for years now, guards seem to get pushed down for whatever reason,
Sure. I mean, the Castro is a great example of that. So they don't have quite that positional weight that the tackles do. Obviously, that makes sense. So
if they win a few more games, they're going to be down there picking around about 18 again.
They're in guard territory then.
People are going to be poor fans of the Steelers right now are conflicted. I want my team to win, but I don't want to lose this high draft pick, top 10 draft pick.
Here's my thing on that. I understand the instinct and the math of it, but if the team is winning, that means the team's playing better. I will take the team playing better, which probably means that Kenny Pickett's playing better, that George Pickens is playing better, the line's playing better, the run game's better, the defense is better. I will take all of those things that'll be promising and encouraging into 2023, as opposed to having a 10-spot higher draft pick. Because let's say this team absolutely bottoms out and tanks and they pick 5th overall. I think it's a scarier thought. Yeah, you get the 5th overall pick, but that probably means Pickett was trash and the run game was trash and the defense didn't play up to potential, and a 5th overall pick's not going to fix all those things. So I will take all the benefits of winning and what that means and what that looks like to have a slightly lower first round pick.
Look, and we've talked about it. It's not my DNA to kind of to not root for them to have good performances on a week to week. And plus, man, you don't want to spend all week and all 22 tape picking out all the negative stuff, on time. It's a lot better to pick out and watch great execution and play design and successful plays and that kind of stuff than it is, the bad stuff. And the bad stuff is what generally puts you in 4 and whatever territory, 5 or whatever territory.
Right. So rooting for wins for a lot of reasons.
They're going to get it. They're going to get a few more wins. Might as well be prepared for it.
Yeah, I think you're post or right before the bye projection of 7 wins sounds about right. I mean, can they beat Atlanta, Carolina, the Raiders, split against Baltimore? I mean, I think they can go 3-3 the rest of the way.
I think it's possible. Yeah, at least.
So,
yeah.
And I know your projection was 7 wins.
I mean, Baltimore isn't exactly lighting it up on offense, Well,
they still scare me, but I mean, Pittsburgh's handled Lamar Jackson better than any other defense has ever handled Lamar. So, and a split against Baltimore, I think is reasonable to predict.
Okay.
So anyway, I want to switch to Mike Tomlin on James Pierre. I know we talked about him a bit, his performance, his good game against the Colts on Monday night, and Tomlin talking about the progression that he's seen, saying, quote, "There's a steadiness in him that may have not been there before. It's probably reflected more than anything in levels of communication, conversations you can have with him in game. He's present. He's aware. He can articulate the things he's seeing. I think it's where he is relative to where he's been." So a lot of praise there for the growth that Pierre has shown. And I just hope they keep playing this guy, at least in sub-package football. I think he's earned that opportunity. I think you want to see more of him, get a larger sample size, more snaps. But I think every time this year that he's been called upon, Pierre has played well.
Yeah, and I think people will point to, well, he got beat, on for a touchdown in that game, but it was a great route. I mean, great throw, great catch, right? In that, but he did make up for it for the play on the interception there, and reading that, and securing the football. And Lord knows we've seen this team drop some interceptions this year. And also the prime thing that you've been one of the prime things you've been pointing to as well too, and kudos to you on that, is it gives you a chance to not make Arthur Millette every down nickel. Gives you the ability to move Cam Sutton inside. By the way, Cam Sutton is a communicating son of a gun. You could just see that on the all 22. That guy really orchestrates some things with some communication in that defense. And I think he even pointed out maybe on one of those wide receiver screens, I think he knew that was coming just from tape study and all like that. But yeah, I mean, Witherspoon to me is not it. I think Wallace is a serviceable guy on the outside, but maybe not a guy that you want to play every down out there. Pierre is physical, will play the run. Obviously he had his issues, last season with biting and not having his eyes in the right place and all like that, and getting beat over the top. But I mean, how many times actually has that happened other than Jamar Chase, I guess, of him? There have been other times, but his biggest fault, in my opinion, is getting ate up sometimes on maybe trying to break on, trying to guess on a play and falling for like a double move or something over the top.
Yeah, but I mean, a lot of that was happening last year, really his first year of game action. He's still a third-year guy. He's a bit older. He came out, he was a senior, maybe even a super senior whenever he came out. So he was an older guy overall, but still a third-year corner that, takes his predictable almost every corner, unless you're, Patrick Surtain, the third kind of caliber player. They're going to have their lumps when they come out, the college game, the NFL game, the nuances of it all. And just in general, no cornerback bats 1,000. They're going to give up some reps in this offensive pass happy type world. So just to see him learn and grow and get better, I think it's been pretty evident with James Pierre. And to your point that you mentioned, Cam Sutton inside, whenever he got stuck to the outside, it's harder for him to communicate because he's on the outside, he's on the sideline. When he's in that slot position, he can really talk to everybody effectively. And as you said, he's the smartest guy on that field. He's a great communicator. And so I think bumping him to the slot provides that good hub of communication to play inside.
And we ran down just recently the list of unrestricted free agents, and probably you got to re-sign that guy at this point. You have no choice, and there's not many guys that are either in contract years, meaning that they'll be entering their final year next year, or guys that are unrestricted free agents that you can point to and circle and say, that guy needs a contract, but Sutton, I think tops the list as far as
what's the number on him though? I have no idea. I mean, because he got signed pretty cheap on this current deal that he's on.
Yeah. I mean, it's probably in I don't know. I have to look, but
he's at 4.5 right now. I think it was a 2-year, $9 million. I want to say was his the deal that he's on. It had all the void. The contract's going to void here.
Right.
But I mean, you talking 7 million? Is that a number to put out?
He is 4.5. Boy, you got. I mean, he's technically a huge steal right now. 4.5. Sure. I mean, it's got to be double that at least. Probably. Let's say triple that.
Really? Wow.
Yeah. I mean, what are you going to do if you don't have him?
It's a fair point. There really aren't any cornerbacks on this roster locked up long-term. Wallace through 2023, Witherspoon through 2023. Pierre is restricted free agent. Is that what his status is after this year?
I believe so. I think, I think he all you got to do is tender him.
Okay, but still, he's only under team control, you can call it, to use the baseball term, through 2023. Millette through 2023. There are no long-term options for this team right now. So, yeah, I mean, yeah, I don't know the number.
You almost have to. I mean, I would think you got to put him in the because of him because he would get attention as an unrestricted guy. I think you have to put him somewhere in probably the top 15 paid.
You think that high?
Yeah,
I think it might be a little bit lower. That just feels. I like Cam Sutton. That just feels a little bit high.
3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. The fit looks like Shaquille Griffin is the 15th highest paid at 13,333,333 million.
Yeah, I mean, it's a fair point, but he's not a number one. And that's the other concern too, is that you have a bunch of number two types on this team, guys who can be solid corners, but not like your top guy that can match up against Jamar Chase twice a year, and you still have to find that guy. So that's where you kind of wrestle with the discussion when it comes to that cornerback room.
If you get him for 13 million, yes or no?
Ah, man. I mean, they got money to spend. It just feels high. I mean, it just to go from 4.5 to 13.
But what's the cost of losing him?
Sure. Is it worth walking over 3 million or so? I mean, I understand that. So it would depend on what the overall plan is.
You got to pay somebody but you usually see one or two paid anyway during the off season.
Sure.
I think the number on him's about 13 million, Alex, to be honest with you.
That's fair. Yeah, you're right. Maybe I'm underestimating it because, he's going to want to get paid. He's still a pretty young guy. So it's all good points.
Write that down.
I'm going to. It's not going to leave me. That's a hard number to forget overall. But anything else from Mike Tomlin that he talked about Tuesday that you want to go back to?
No, I just like the way he kind of brushed off the Monday Night Football, talk and all like that. And I think we already covered the angry, the little angry comment about Millette and all like that.
19-3, though, nothing to sneeze at Monday Night Football. I don't know is that the best all-time record for a coach on Monday Night Football? I don't know what the stat is.
What was it? Madden? What was the stat on that? Tomlin and Madden on Monday night? Hold on, I'll pull that.
I don't even know. I mean, I'm not even sure what the number is, but I can imagine that John Madden's right up there with. I should say Mike Tomlin's right up there with John Madden. Best
win percentage on Monday Night Football head coaches all-time, minimum 10 games. John Madden went 11-1-1, 885 win percentage, and Tomlin's now right behind him at 864 win percentage at 19-3, and behind Tomlin is another Raiders coach, Tom Flores. So you got both those guys are in the he's bookended by two guys in the Pro Football Hall of Fame.
Remember how we talked about the show being short? I'm going to ask you to take it in a rabbit hole here. How many wins is Mike Tomlin going to finish with in his career? He's at 156 right now. That's 18th all time. He's 2 behind Bud Grant. He's 5 behind Mike Holmgren and 10 behind the great Paul Brown. So I just, top 10 is Chuck Knox at 186. Tomlin should get there, I would imagine. I mean,
where is he at right now?
156. Will he catch Noel, who's at 193?
Well, my initial thought when you said how many wins overall, I could see him at least being 30 more wins, I would think.
I mean, let's say he coaches just even hypothetically 5 more seasons, wins an average of, depending on your perspective games. Of him, you think 10? Games. I was going to say 9 just to kind of hedge a little bit. So that's 45 games. So what's 156? And now we're in the math portion of the show.
200,
that's
right?
201. So, and that's, he could be coaching longer than that. So, yeah, he should join the 200 club.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
All right, let's. I had a thought here that just escaped me, but anyway, let's talk about the all 22 of this game, Dave. Going back through some of the coaches' tape. Let's start with the Pittsburgh Steelers offense. What were your impressions watching the game back?
Boy, nice to see some movement on the offensive line and see some lanes for these running backs to get through. First and foremost, that was I thought they overall did a good job up front, and I thought Benny Snell and Anthony McFarland both did. And Mike Tomlin put is something that Mike Tomlin said. They played within their skill sets. They didn't try to do too much. Benny Snell is north-south, right? And he did actually have a nice little, I think, cut in there. Most of his cuts usually do come though, like 5 to 6 yards. When you've seen in the past the success that Benny Snell has had, it's normally with those cuts coming around that second level type stuff. You don't see a lot of dancing and stuff with Benny Snell in the backfield where he's making guys miss. I thought both backs really stepped up and answered the bell well. I thought the offensive line blocking for the most part was good up front there. So that stuck out. And we already talked about Mason Cole. We probably should have highlighted that a little bit more coming out of the TV tape and into the all 22 tape, on after the game. But I thought Mason Cole played well.
Yeah, I thought Dan Moore had some really good down blocks. They're running off his hip quite a bit. And with Snell, you're right. I mean, he makes one cut. That's it. He's a literal definition of the cliche one cut runner. Makes the one cut, puts his foot in the ground, squares his shoulders, get downhill. And that's his style. And had the article today, and I believe I referenced it on Tuesday briefly, that it's just good football justice for him. It's good football justice for Anthony McFarland. Those guys working really hard, doing all the dirty work, scout teams, special teams, things like that. And to finally get that reward, you got to watch the spike that Snell had on that touchdown. I mean, he hammers that ball down. Just you can kind of feel long time coming for that guy. So that was a really good moment for him.
We told everybody he wasn't going anywhere.
Right.
Mike Tomlin loves Benny Snell football, and I think he got a little realization when he hit the NFL that this isn't college anymore. And you come out every draft class. Fan bases, this guy's going to be the next great thing, and then slowly he got pushed to the side, and it didn't take too long for. I mean, this past off season. Everybody and their brothers seemed like wanted him gone. And we kept telling people that, the weight, the style that he plays, he's not flashy, but you can get by with Benny Snell. And we'll see what happens with Najee Harris this week, obviously, and Jaylen Warren too, with his hamstring. You can win with Benny Snell on the back. You can win games the way this team played offensively. You can win another game or two with Benny Snell and McFarland in the backfield with the way that offensive line played, I believe.
Sure, so long they block it up. Snell's not going to create too much, but if you block it up well, then he's going to produce for you. I mean, Snell, even his first 2 years, he was playing in 2019, 2020, got over 100 carries in both years. But the last 2 years, and of course this year, especially with the emergence of Jaylen Warren, Snell's first offensive snaps didn't come until the Bengals game 2 weeks ago. And then he gets into this, pretty big role against the Colts. So, I mean, this is literally one of the best running backs in SEC history. He is third all time in touchdowns. He's still 12th all time in yards. And for him to embrace special teams, to take on that role, despite kind of having that bravado of Benny Snell football and big man on campus at Kentucky, he really helped transform that program. They beat Florida for the first time in 37 years while he was there and stuff like that. To make that transition to special teams and to cut your teeth running down kicks and punts, not easy to do, probably personally from an ego standpoint. I think he's always embraced that role. He's really become a quality special teamer, although I think he had a pretty bad game on special teams in this game. But that aside,
and pass pro too, which he's normally much better at.
Right. But putting all that aside from a running perspective, and just to see the opportunity of all that work, all that dirty work to pay off into some glory for a moment, primetime football Monday night, really good moment for him, and obviously a valuable asset to winning this game.
Yeah, the only rebuttal I was going to have to anything that you said was that and I didn't watch the special teams reel, so you can speak to that. But the pass pro was lacking, a couple of times in this one. But over the years, he's proven to be, a reliable guy that steps up and eats grass and gets it done. He just didn't have a good game, I didn't think, in against the Colts in that territory overall. But I mean, man, if let's say you got Warren back this week, you could go into a game and be, to me, pretty comfortable with splitting time with Warren and Snell back there, and then mix in couple plays for McFarland, I think.
Yeah, they ran that wheel to McFarland. You've been asking for that on that dump off to Sims. He actually ran a wheel route, so we'll see if that's ever back in the fold.
Here's another question. This was the subject of my terrible take yesterday. Did McFarland put not that it would be a huge loss or anything like that, but if you're another NFL team at this point of the season, and we've seen, these teams need some running backs this time of the year, is this a guy maybe that you're looking at that tape from Monday night and saying, man, let's sign him off the practice squad and get a good look at him for at least three weeks? That's
a good point. I hadn't considered that. Potentially, I wrote about leading into this game that McFarland, this was a big game for him, not only to show what the Steelers what he can do, but to show the rest of the league what he can do. So, yeah, if it's one of those like week 17 things and teams are kind of packing it in on the season, they're thinking about future contracts and stuff like that, could I see McFarland get poached? Yeah, I hadn't considered it, but that's a really good point.
Could you see it? And if it was going to happen this week, it would happen right now today, because he reverted on right after the Monday night game, obviously.
Yeah, it probably would have happened yesterday. I would have to get a guy in.
Well, I don't think the transaction actually goes in. I think today would have to be the day with him.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Okay. But if you were going to lose him this week, it would be by 4:00 today off the practice squad. And even if it didn't happen today, you get into the final 4 weeks of the season, like you said, and you see it every year, right?
You do. Absolutely.
Guys get poached, and people want to look at them for the final 3 or 4 games, and then decide if they want to sign them to a futures deal. And I'm not saying it's going to happen, like I said on my terrible take, but don't be surprised if it does happen.
Yeah, it's a really good point. I don't think it's a concern right now, but I think, as you just said, late in the season, the last 2-3 weeks, running back injuries start occurring. You're just kind of looking at guys for next year. You really get that eye towards the offseason. It's something to certainly consider. Mm-hmm. McFarland had a good summer. I talked about it. He had a good summer. He played well. It's just Jaylen Warren was fantastic, and Stell had his role on special teams. McFarland is not an asset there besides some meager kick return value, but not going to bring the value that Snell brings. So you had Harris, Warren, and Snell. There really wasn't a home for McFarland to make the team, but I think he's progressed well. He came out, he was a redshirt sophomore. That's a tough transition even for a running back, 2020 COVID year type stuff. So he's battled some adversity. I think to see him progress is just probably natural and shouldn't be entirely unexpected.
And, assuming he does stick to the practice squad, and once again, we'll see what happens with Najee and Jaylen Warren, Saturday elevation probably.
Yeah, if the group isn't fully healthy, McFarland should get the elevation again. Moving on to the Steelers, rest of their offense, any more takeaways on Kenny Pickett? I know all eyes on him. Do you feel any better, worse about his performance watching the All-22?
As we talked about the other day, just his most complete. I really think it might have been his best game, really, to be honest, when you going through it. Look, he missed the early slant flat. He corrected it later in the game. The protection issues, I think he'll get more comfortable with, hopefully, in reading what the hots are, and just more than anything, throw that damn ball into the ground. Just dirt it. Mm-hmm. Don't get sacked there. Don't like him missing, Pickens on that ball in the end zone there. That would have been a great punctuation had he hit that one overall. But I liked it overall. Once again, the things that I think we need to really be watching with him the rest of the season is pushing the football down the field more than 12, 14 yards in the air, and the red zone. And we've kind of been talking about that for several weeks now with him.
Right. Yeah, I think overall my thoughts are pretty much the same, even watching back the All-22. I thought it was a good performance, still some things to work on, as there always are going to be, but just thought he was in command, handled situational football well, end to half, end to game type stuff, generally made good decisions, and, had a couple of really high-level type plays.
Yeah, look, if he starts burying one extra one a game, you're going to be in a lot of these games moving forward, I think, in the red zone. And the thing is, though, you see, it felt like this offense, and they were for the most part, this offense is not built to overcome the shooting themselves in the foot.
Sure, yeah, they have zero margin for error on this team.
Right. And luckily, as we talked about, they only had the one offensive penalty. What happens in the game that you have 5 for whatever reason? Right. They're not built to continually have to climb the 3rd and 10 hurdle.
Any other thoughts, observations on the Steelers offense?
No, I mean, not unless you got something.
I was going to say, not that it's unexpected. In fact, it's the expectation, but you've talked about this quite a bit, but just watching Pat Freiermuth block in space, still work to do as an inline guy, but he gets something about him on the move. He starts becoming like Gronk. I mean, I'm watching him just move around Stephon Gilmore, moving DBs and moving safeties and stuff like that. I still think he's got a ways to go as a blocker, but he gets out there in space on some of the toss game stuff, screen game type stuff. This guy really moves people.
Yeah, but he has to get better, and I don't know how much better he will get now at this point as an inline blocker, which leads me to the question is Zach Gentry good enough that you re-sign him, or do you go out there looking for that 5th round guy that can help you in the run game?
No, I think you re-sign Gentry. I mean, you got to find a guy of his size. It's pretty unique. It's a pretty big asset. Even playing all these. It's no coincidence this team's been running better against 4-3 teams, and Gentry's blocked pretty well because you got to have guys to block some of these 4-3 ends. And so Gentry's, I think his blocking has been maybe not quite what I thought it would be this year. Maybe a little bit disappointing, but I'm not trying to replace him. So assuming his demands are not unreasonable, and I imagine it's $3 million. $4 million to re-sign him.
Right. And he wants to stay. Obviously money is the ruling factor here, but if you get, if you make it worth his while, he'll resign. He'll resign easily.
Yeah. You can't break up Grillin' and Chillin'. I mean, how could you leave that? So, do you ever watch that Grillin' and Chillin' that?
Yeah.
That's funny.
Those two, they were made for each other.
Yeah, for sure. They got a big Step Brothers kind of vibe going on there. I don't know who's who in that scenario, but anyway, I've
never seen that movie.
You've never? Okay, well, I finally one upped you. It's taken till episode 55 of season 13, but I finally am on the board when it comes to movies. It's a funny movie. You should watch.
All right.
I think what this team really should do though is just make Pat Freiermuth the de facto slot receiver. They should just play their 12 personnel. Pat Freiermuth stands up in the slot. Gentry is your inline wide tight end. Because you're not getting nothing.
You can't do anything worse than what they've had out of the slot right now, right?
I understand the motion stuff they're going to do and all that. I'm being a little hyperbolic, but I think Freiermuth should basically become like your de facto slot receiver.
Well, and in other words, you'd have more 2 tight ends on the field, right? Because look, going back several years ago, you can dictate by what the defense role. You can look at what the defense does and either collapse in and go heavy, or if they had the bigger personnel out there, then you can split a guy like Freiermuth out there in the slot and take advantage of a matchup on a linebacker.
Yeah, you can display some of their guys and kind of mess with them a little bit and create some good matchups inside. So I mean, I'm a little half joking, but also half literal in that, because what did Gunner had 1 rush for 9 yards and Sims had 3 catches for I think 9 yards too, and they were all short stuff. So,
and plus some of the things they try to do with Gunner and it's not his. I mean, the guy gets an A for effort with trying to crack down and block down inside, but I'd much rather have a bigger guy doing that.
Sure, not getting a ton of great production there. Like I said, these guys get their cardio in, they get their steps in, and that's really all they offer this offense right now.
You're not re-signing Derek Watt, are you?
Not unless it's super, super cheap. Even as a special teamer, he's fine. Down. He commands some attention, but it's not Tyler Matakevich. It's not Rosie Nix to me. It's not Vince Williams caliber play there. All right, let's flip over to the defense. Frankly, I have not gone through the all 22 as much on the defense, probably as you have. So let me start by asking you your thoughts on the all 22.
Man, Alex Highsmith had a game, didn't he? And not just
in the final. Was it better overall? Okay.
I mean, it was. I thought he played well overall. Man, chasing down some backside runs and even in the first couple of drives there, just seeing the effort, him ability to cover space and drop in coverage. He has become the complete complete outside linebacker for this team. And Mike Tomlin even made sure to point out that he does have. I don't know why you want to continue trying to tamp down his value like that, because the guy. But I get it. TJ Watt commands respect on the other side, and that that allows Highsmith to kind of do what he wants to do on that other side there. But he is become a very, very well-rounded player. And I think it begs to the question with him. And look, this team does need depth at the outside linebacker position. But, man, if you can – I think you at least try to see what Alex Highsmith's number is during the offseason. You obviously have him under control. You're not obligated to. You use that as a weapon against him, and don't think Omar Khan won't of what he can earn in his not only next season on a proven performance escalator when stacked, let's say, on top of they wouldn't do it, but you use it as a weapon anyway. Back-to-back franchise tags and the 20% rule. You can say, look, this is the max that you can earn under our control right here, and kind of use that as a weapon. And if you want the guaranteed money, kind of aspect. I wouldn't go crazy, obviously, with more than maybe first year guaranteed money with him, but I have seen enough out of him now through this portion of the season that I make a serious run at trying to get him re-upped.
Right. I mean, they won't use 2 franchise tags, but they sure as heck could use one of them. They did on Bud Dupree. And so, you got to, have that element to it. The reason why Tomlin, I think, says all those things publicly, as you said, why are you tamping down his value? To tamp down his value. Right. When you're trying to pay this guy. You're trying to be like, well, TJ Watt was there, and you're trying to say those things because Highsmith is not going to be cheap this summer if you want to do something with him. So maybe that's the game that Tomlin's playing there, and we're telling him to kind of try to drive that price down a little bit. But 10 sacks, 4 forced fumbles, still 6 games to go. That price tag's going up.
Right. I just thought top to bottom he stuck out on film.
Gotcha. Anything else overall? I like where the corners contested. I mean, I don't have the stat offhand, but I think the quarterback rating, which I know is a bit antiquated, but it's a number I like to use just to provide baseline value. The quarterback rating when the Steelers' top 3 corners of Sutton, Pierre, and Wallace were targeted was like 64.2. It was good. Really strong number overall. Obviously a big difference compared to the Bengals game. So watching those guys compete, even Sutton, who I thought made some plays early, made some plays late, the final breakup there, good across the board.
I thought Bush had an okay game from especially from a being in the right place aspect and gap filling and all like that, and had kind of one contested opportunity there on who was Mo Alley Cox, I think, or maybe it was the other tight end.
The one crosser to Pittman, was it, or so? They had a crosser that he broke up. He had maybe
it was Pittman. I can't remember.
It was kind of a little behind. I don't know if Bush even got a hand on it, but he was in good positioning.
Yeah.
So, I mean, he was also the dime linebacker in this game without Spillane. It was Bush over Miles Jack. I know Tomlin tried to downplay that as well, but Bush getting an extra role with Spillane being out.
And look, that no way is me saying, they got to knock themselves out trying to re-sign him. But I mean, Bush has played better this year, especially in the last, 5 games, a lot more physical towards the line of scrimmage. I mean, there are still plays where he gets run out, but I just think top to bottom, these last, let's say 4 or 5 games, he's played better.
Oh, yeah. Again, I think he has been better. The question is it good enough to retain him? I'm still probably not in that camp, but I do want to recognize he's been better. Credit to him, credit to Flores, but credit to everybody. But certainly it's inarguable to say that Bush has improved.
Ian Rappaport's reporting that Najee Harris did not suffer a major injury. His status this week is up in the air, and he'll be reevaluated as practice goes on this week. But no significant injury is good news.
Yeah, and that's what Tomlin seemed to hint at during his Tuesday press conference. He did not believe it was significant, and so still don't know exactly what it is. And with that short week, it's going to be probably it obviously is a tighter turnaround, so we'll just have to wait and see. I'm sure he will not practice today, and we'll see what Thursday and Friday say about his potential status.
Right. Defensive, anything else stick out defensively?
Just kind of going back through some of the charting that I did and watching that game over. Pretty quiet for TJ Watt. I know, as you said, you're right to point out Braden Smith's a pretty good right tackle, so I think he had a tougher matchup of the two between him and Alex Highsmith. Yeah, I didn't like the interior pocket. I thought they didn't really collapse things well, allowed Ryan to hitch up too much and too often. And then just, again, some safety blitzes, some DBs being aggressive in this game seemed to be Pittsburgh's game plan against the less than mobile Matt Ryan.
Right. I thought that right tackle, and that's one thing that kind of stuck out at me going through the tape ahead of this game is, man, that Braden Smith, pretty decent right tackle.
Sure, but when it's TJ Watt, I don't care who the right tackle is.
He's under contract for a while, isn't he?
Braden Smith? I have no idea. I mean, maybe. I hope for the Colts' sake because their line's a mess. But, I mean, I don't want to – it's TJ Watt. TJ Watt should dominate any right tackle, and Braden Smith's not exactly the best right tackle in the world. Looks like through 2025. Okay. So, 26 years old. He's looks like he signed a pretty hefty extension not too long ago.
Okay. Yeah, he earned it.
He did. Let's see, special teams. I'm trying to watch some of the kick coverage stuff. Again, it wasn't even just like you gave up the 89-yard. You allowed a 45-yarder. They had several good run backs. I know that Boykin being out, he's I always forget how they count things. If the guy closest to the kicker is R1 or R5 and how they count that out. But Boykin always plays in that spot directly to the right of the kicker. So he got replaced by Jimmer Jones. There was some probably other shifting going on. On that big return, though, the 89-yarder, I don't know what Miles Killebrew is doing. He kind of, you have 5 to a side. You get the kicker, you got 5 to the left, 5 to the right, and then Killebrew on right basically as the return man. Flowers catches the ball. Killebrew is almost like it's a stunt, and he's running to the other side, and nobody ever replaced on that side. So you basically had 4 guys on the Steelers' left side, the Colts' right side, and just a giant lane in the middle, and nobody got off a block and made a tackle and stuff like that. So it's hard to describe those things, obviously, audio format, but you saw Killebrew and whoever on the other side was in that same gap. And you should know, if you draw a line in terms of coverage stuff, you should never have 2 guys on the same line. You should have each guy in each gap, just like you would have for run defense. So I don't know what happened with Killebrew. Something I think got weird there for him to take a very unusual path on that play.
Okay.
That probably is helpful to nobody because I tried to explain that poorly. Right. I will have a video or a film and breakdown to kind of illustrate that later in the week.
Yeah, look, no easy week this week with Cordero Patterson.
Yeah, he's only the all-time leader in kick return touchdowns, so good luck with that. Maybe some squib kicks. I don't know what the plan of attack is going to be here. I mean, does Wright have the leg to literally boot the ball out of the end zone?
I'd try it. In a dome type setting and all like that. I would try to get it out. Don't let that guy touch the ball any more than he has to, because he's going to get used on offense as well too. Man, I owe that. If I ever run into that guy, I got to buy him a cold drink because I was real critical of Cordell Patterson just from he had the athletic ability obviously coming out, and you could see that, but you just wondered, man, how, they were having to tell him basically what his assignments were kind of on a play-by-play basis. But, if you can do that, he can execute, man. Here he is all these years later. I used to say, man, you probably used the Terry Bradshaw line on him. You probably couldn't spell cat if you spotted him the A and the T, but he, make sure what I used to say with him, make sure the playbook had crayons and. Where
does that come from? I don't remember.
Just because
the reports that he wasn't picking things up.
Yeah, he wasn't that sharp of a kid from an X's and O's standpoint. Was kind of the narrative that was floated around really coming out.
Yeah, he's doing something right.
Man, he is.
NFL 34 or whatever years old he is.
I mean, how many years has he been in the NFL now?
It's a long time, and he's well into his 30s. I don't know exactly how old he is. But.
And then props to him from being able to. You could use him all. He's a utility player. He is.
Yeah, catch. They'll split him out a ton in this game.
Right.
You guys will watch.
I mean,
he's 31, so he's a little bit younger than I thought, but still 31 years old.
And still getting it done. And anywhere he lines up on the field, he can make plays. And once again, he won't listen to this, but if I ever run into him anywhere, I owe him an apology and a cold drink.
That Falcons offense kind of fun to watch. They do a lot of different stuff. I got into some tape prior to the Colts game because of how quickly this week turns around, and they do a lot of fun little wrinkles, and they got they literally have 4 running backs and a quarterback who can move. So it's a lot of people to defend, and it's always fresh legs. Mm-hmm. All right, that covers
anything else on special teams.
Connor Hayward, I mean, not that you want to have an 89-yard return, but great hustle to make that tackle. Sure Colts still scored, but I mean, I like the hustle there. Line him up with a good block. Wright making his field goals. I mean, Wright 6 for 6 his last 2 weeks after that tough game against New Orleans. So good bounce back game for him.
Yeah, absolutely. And you needed every one of them points.
And if you watch after the block, I caught Danny Smith on the sideline just screaming in the air, like, don't go after the ball. Don't go after the ball. I mean, he is just go. He's literally on the field too. He's like that Seahawks player. You watch that clip of that Seahawks player on that interception run out from the sideline?
I didn't go back to see. Was there a flag on that or anything though?
I don't think there was. I don't know for sure, but I don't think they called it.
I saw the play. I didn't research it more than to see did he get called or is there a fine for that?
There probably will be, but I don't think they had a flag.
We missed it, you know.
They definitely missed it. I'm pretty sure there was not a flag because I think it was kind of found out after the fact. But yeah, pretty wild play there. Mm-hmm. All right, just real briefly, Ben had his podcast Footballing on Monday or on Tuesday, I should say, and it had a good guest with Marquise Pouncey. Apparently, Pouncey drove up 3 hours just to go hang out with Ben, which really kind of talks about how close those two guys have always been, and shared some stories. They were watching the Monday night game. My days are all mixed up right now. And what were your takeaways from listening to Pounce and Ben?
Just a lot of funny stories, and those two really have will be in each other's lives the rest of the way on out. Just to kind of, it's fun to hear some of the stories and the special relationship kind of that Pouncey and Ben had first and foremost. Pouncey's a funny dude. I mean, he is a funny dude, and I'm trying to think some of the things that stuck out to me. Them going back.
Looks good too. Lost all that weight.
Oh yeah, he does. I like they picking on Al Villanueva every chance that they could get as well too. But his comments about not bringing in an outside free agent was quite interesting on the offensive line. Pouncey views it as that's something that you want to, I think, cultivate via the draft because, and I think some of his main reasons is you get some of these veterans that come in and they're established and they have their way of doing their things. And if they have younger guys, all younger, younger offensive line group outside of that, then that kind of gets permeated down, He in so many words thinks the leadership should come from inside the organization, via the drafts in so many words. And it sounds like Marquise Pouncey's very much in favor of the next great Steelers offensive line being cultivated from within and via the draft.
Doesn't surprise me. I mean, it's literally how that whole Steelers line was built. Did they bring in any free agents during Pouncey's time? Essentially, not really. I mean, it was all in-house stuff. DeCastro, Foster, Pouncey himself, Gilbert, practice squad guys that elevated like Filer and Villanueva and Chris Hubbard and people like that. So it was very much an internal type thing. I mean, I get the point overall and who might disagree with Marquise Pouncey, but I think James Daniels has been a good presence for Pittsburgh this year. I think sometimes when you have that young offensive line, I mean, Daniels is young himself. He's 25, right. but he's got a lot of experience. He's a 5-year guy in the NFL. So it depends on the circumstance and it depends on the guy, of course. But I think Daniels has been a really strong presence in becoming at least kind of the face of that Steelers offensive line.
Okay. What else stuck out that Pouncey said?
Well, they talked about the Rudolph Garrett whole saga there. I really kind of dunking on Mason Rudolph. I mean, Pouncey stood up for him, obviously, but they were like, yeah, if it was Ben, I would have kept kicking. Rudolph, they were just kind of joking about that kind of stuff. So that made me laugh, but funny perspective there.
Yeah, he said that's the most he was ever fined, and none of his other fights even totaled up close to that. So if he's going to spend that much money, he wish he would have been defending Ben than Mason Rudolph. That was funny, and I thought it was also what else did Ben have to say that was funny related to? You talk about. Kind of taking shots at former quarterbacks. He asked Pouncey, "Have you ever been a backup or something along those lines?" And Pouncey somehow turned it on him to the fact that weren't you a backup quarterback once? And he said, "Yeah, I was backup to Landry Jones. I had to come off and throw 3 touchdown passes and win the game." And
that's
obviously,
a Ben thing to say.
Yeah, and he was obviously talking about that Cleveland's Brown game where mighty questionable going into it, and they ended up making him active, but let him serve as a backup. And then Landry got hurt. I think what was it? The end of the
early. It was early.
End of the first quarter or something like that, and then in comes Ben and does what Ben does, and I thought that was entertaining.
Ben also, I mean, Ben has kind of hinted at it before, but he does not like Matt Canada. He took a shot in there. They were talking about, and Pouncey was joking. This goes back to the whole. Remember Chris Boswell post game after whatever win that was, Tampa Bay or whatever, and he's in the locker room and he says that one don't. What did Bos say? Don't take credit for that one. That
well,
one
we don't know for sure who it was.
Right, but what did Boswell say? What did Boswell? I'm trying to remember the exact phrase that he used.
Yeah.
You guys know what it is. Everyone talks about it.
Not because of you or something like that.
Right. And Pouncey jokingly was like apparently saying that was directed at Trubisky, and then Ben was like, "No, you know who that was directed at," and then didn't say who it was and stuff like that. And there were a couple other moments throughout that where. Ben has never directly called out Canada, but has very much strongly hinted at that. So you're very much feeling the tea leaves that Ben did not like Matt Canada, and Matt Canada may have not liked Ben either.
And but Marquise Pouncey seems to like Canada. I didn't hear the comment that you just made. I didn't get to that point, but I got to the point where Marquise shout out to Matt Canada. He says that guy's been taking it, and it didn't feel like tongue in cheek. I mean, it felt like he thinks Matt Canada is a fine guy.
Yeah, I think he said he kind of knew him. I wonder what the story is there. But then Pouncey was kind of joking and was like, sometimes I yell at Matt too. So I don't know. I don't know where he comes in on Matt Canada. But I mean, at other points in different moments of the podcast this year, Ben has made some subtle Ben-like shots at Canada. So you get a feel for that. Probably, I mean, that makes sense. They're both pretty type A personalities. And Ben probably didn't like Canada trying to mess with him and play him within this weird structure because when he played for Fietner, Ben did whatever he wanted to do and he could get away with it because he was Fietner's guy, he was BA's guy, stuff like that. Not the case with Canada. So I feel like that relationship probably sucked. I mean, for lack of a better word.
Yeah, and look, if you have however long it is, 2.5. I mean, they're watching the whole Monday night football game, and there's great dialogue and story. I mean, if you got 3 hours to spend, it's a great episode.
Yeah, they've been some when he's had some good guests on. It's been fun. I know he's talked about wanting to get James Harrison soon, so I'd love to have a Debo episode. That would be a good time. So I mean, we kind of bag on the podcast sometimes. It's a good podcast. It's fine. It just creates a lot of work for us to listen to it all, absorb it all.
Yeah, that and the Cameron Hayward one. Yeah.
Yeah, and the Cam Hayward, which the full episode's not even out, so I'm not even sure what they're doing for that this week. Anyway, all right, Dave, that probably wraps things up. Any other final thoughts? Anything you want to talk about we did not get to?
I think we got most of it right. We were able to have the breaking news in there about Najee, or at least the update on Najee there. So
let's get to some reader emails and close out today's show.
Okay, yeah, and real quick, looks like the Falcons are going to wear their red, those red throwback. That was a sharp jersey with the red helmets that they used to wear and all like that. What do you think about? I don't like the Falcons jersey right now, especially the font on the black uniforms. They look more USFL, Arena Football League. Do you like their current jerseys, the Falcons?
I hadn't stared at them too long. They look okay, but yeah, I guess they're not my favorite.
I like it'll be interesting to see them wear those red helmets again. I thought those were sharp back in the day when they used to wear them. But anyway, I saw that come across my Twitter machine there, so I thought I'd point that out there. Let's see. We'll go to Jeff Berg here in email machine. Well, glad that we didn't go 3-8 for the first time. Let's see. Oh, okay. Here's Pickens jumping around. Okay, I've got two questions. He said, he starts off, well, glad that we didn't go 3-8 for the first time in history. I've got two questions. The first may not be able to be answered without the all 22. In the first quarter around, I believe the 10-minute mark, the TV showed Pickens getting open, but Kenny couldn't get it to him, and Pickens is jumping and showing frustration because he felt he was open. It was the play where I think Kenny had to scramble due to pressure, and I'm wondering if Pickens instead should be keeping himself in the play to help his quarterback instead of being in frustration mode, or was the play already over? Second question, is there any possibility of trading Deontay Johnson around the time of the draft? His constant failure to run upfield continues to kill this team. It seems to be in every game thing for him. It'd be interesting to know how much lost yardage he has had. He says, I felt good. It felt good to put a win in the books and see Kenny work under adversity. I really agree with your last point there. Felt get the win and watch Kenny do some of the things that he did in the game. I thought it was a bit much to say that Pickett should have hit Pickens on that one play.
Yeah, Pickens didn't jump up like that until after Pickett had scrambled. Pickens did a nice job there. Scramble drill rules very basic. Short routes go long routes come back to the quarterback and just try to find grass. And I thought Pickens did that well. So the frustration, kind of him jumping in the air, wasn't until after the play was basically already over. To the second point on Deontay, I mean, yeah, it's becoming even more of a habit in terms of him not going forward. The number of times Kenny Pickett has pointed mid-play for Deontay to run forward is kind of astounding at this point. But I'm not in the trade.
I think he's trying to do too much. I think I think this is part of because look, Deontay out in space, we've seen him make people miss and all like that. I really, really think he's pressing very, very hard right now. And yes. I think that's led, and not that he didn't do this before, because he does have a history of catching it and trying to avoid a tackle and losing some yardage, but it really has been magnified more this year. So I would like to see him just tuck it and try to get upfield and let his own tackle breaking ability and all make things happen that way. I really feel, though, that he's pressing.
Sure. No, I'm with you 100%. I think he's very much a guy that is, in his own head, and he can slump and he can start really pressing and his own biggest self-critic and stuff like that. So yeah, I think that's been an issue overall. Just not getting many chances over the middle of the field. When he gets those chances, he wants to make the home run play, and it gets him into more trouble.
As far as a possibility, is there a possibility? You cannot say there is 0% possibility, but with they don't just dole out. The Steelers don't deal out deals like this to turn around unless Deontay goes full blown Antonio Brown. They're not trading him.
No, he's going to be a Steeler next year.
Right. So that should answer that there. We'll go to Chris Warren. I was lucky enough to be in the second row of last night's game, so I've not seen the TV broadcast yet, but it seems like Sutton played quite a bit inside, in parentheses. Hallelujah. Do you think we can expect to see this consistently going forward? You charted it. You've been calling for it, Alex.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, he played inside quite a bit. I can get you the exact number of snaps if you give me just 1 second to pull up the charting, but obviously that Millette was still along with the every down player. They were doing some different stuff there. Just give me 1 second. So yeah, I think that'll probably be generally the case going forward. There'll be some mixing and matching based on the game. When you play Baltimore, your approach may be different than when you play, I don't know, the Browns again. Well, you get the point. Might be different on a game-to-game type basis, but
Mike Tomlin has so many words said that Millette's a rundown player.
Right. He was saying that even as they were playing him in pass down situations, but they finally backed things up. So Sutton played every single snap in this game, and in the slot, he played 26 snaps. And so, played a healthy amount inside. And
as Alex says, it's a great time to, and Pierre coming off of a nice game. Why wouldn't you go? Why wouldn't you try to duplicate more of those things that you did against the Colts?
Exactly.
Let's see, from the next email here would be, by the way, thanks for everybody sending us to Spotify. Evidently, it's that time of year of Spotify, people getting their Spotify reports and all like that. And it's very humbling to see that this podcast is at the top of the list of some of you. So keep tweeting those out and sending them. And we appreciate everybody passing that along there. Paul Brown writes in, Dave, in Indy was awesome this time. Being in Indy this time around was awesome. Great win. I want to bring up something you'll definitely see on the film that happened right in front of me in the fourth quarter, 1st and goal on the Colts 3. Deontay comes out of the huddle, visibly frustrated, and they run a gadget-like play, if I remember correctly, and that went nowhere. That was the shovel to Watt. After the play, Deontay throws up his hands and motions up towards the press box. This team is tired of Canada, and it's obvious, he writes. By the way, fire that tight end screenplay into the sun. You guys rock, Paul. I know the instance that you're talking about, Paul, I don't believe shows up on the All 22. But it feels like Alex, you'll go back and watch this if you haven't already.
I'm pulling up the All 22. You said it doesn't really show up. I wonder what the TV tape broadcast shows.
Do you have the TV tape in front of you? I mean, can you pull it at that time and look at it? To me, it's not right after they come out of the huddle. To me, it's more like we're in the red zone now. Can you call my number? He does kind of look up there and kind of gesture, but I don't view it. In other words, I don't think he made that gesture after hearing the play call.
Okay. Trying to find out exactly when that one occurred. I have it just almost around there. Hold on. All right, I'm watching it now. And
make sure you get it from after the end of the last play, previous play.
Okay, so before that snap even happened, to go back before the shovel even occurred?
Before the shovel play occurred, after the previous play is run.
Yeah, I just saw Deontay step out of the huddle, and he kind of throws his hands towards the Steelers sideline. I wouldn't say that's towards the booth. It didn't look like, but I don't know what he's motioning for.
But they still, and then there's a little bit of a lull there that I think the play got called after that.
I see Deontay when they're lining up and Pickett's getting under center. He kind of puts his hands up. Deontay does. Is that what you're referring to? You'll have to go back and show me exactly what you're looking for. I mean, Deontay's animated.
Right. The gesture that I see is what I believe to be before the play is actually, because there's like they're muddling first, but I think the play was actually called after Deontay makes that gesture. I might be wrong, but.
Okay. Well, there's something that when they're at the line of scrimmage, and I'm pulling it back up, Deontay kind of throws his hands, not up, but.
He kind of gestures like, hey, what about doing? Me? Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway. I think his body language on tape has always been kind of consistently poor. I think it's been more evident this year. And Deontay definitely does not like Canada, and he's definitely frustrated with how he's been using this offense. And as we've discussed, there's validity to those things now. I think he's got to show better body language. Just showing that poor body language is just bad overall. I think defenses kind of feed off of that stuff. And obviously you're not going to play well if your own body language is poor, but Deontay certainly frustrated.
Well, Paul, there's certainly short answer is something had him unhappy right there. It's just hard to kind of, and it's not in the all 22. I don't think I remember looking at that, but there's something there that Deontay's not happy about.
Yeah, I mean, they tried to get him involved early. They did get him involved early. He had 2 receptions on the opening drive and things like that. So there was an effort, but
and look, he got his number called after that and dropped the pass. You know.
Oh yeah, they threw the fade right after that. So
right.
That probably speaks to that frustration where they said, all right, let's give Deontay a chance, and then he doesn't catch the ball.
Right,
so that's the thing.
Right.
Where it's like, okay, you finally get your number called, you get a chance to make a play, you get a good ball from Pickett, and you just
now sit your ass down and be quiet.
Yeah, shut up. Yeah. Good point.
And look, I mean, I've stated, I understand Deontay's frustrations at all because of the routes that he's been asked to run and that kind of stuff there. But just make the plays and go to the bench,
Yeah, I get being frustrated. And then, hey, you want the ball? Here's the ball. Now you got to make the play. And if you're not going to make the play, then stop talking about it.
Jesse Hernandez. Hey guys, happy to celebrate a win with obvious progression from our rookie first round quarterback. I have a question for you. I think left tackle is probably where we go, but if we keep winning, I'm not too certain if there's going to be the right prospect. He says if there's one available with the way Alex has been talking about Dan Moore's run blocking being much better under Pat Meyer, how do you feel with him possibly moving to left guard? And would you think he would succeed there? I know he obviously has problems with power rushers, but just curious as to what you guys think. Boy, it's almost like Jesse heard the podcast and then wrote in. And I did not see this email before we got on the show. So Jesse, we just had a good discussion. It would be funny to hear Matt Canada speak. I don't know. Anybody got anything else for Matt? And then throw in that. Yeah,
I think he would not give you an answer. I understand asking the question just to see, but I think in season, I think that's a good thing for Tomlin after this, like that last press conference, whenever the season note is over. That's a good time to ask. I think Tomlin.
Well, Jesse, you probably enjoyed the earlier talk that Alex and I had there. To me, I mean, there's just nothing really to go on. It's total projection. We don't. I from not seeing practices and all that kind of stuff.
Right. But right now, as your left tackle, we'll keep watching him, keep evaluating him. And because, again, he's a second-year guy, so there's still a lot to learn.
All right. Bryce writes in, credit to Canada. Hey, guys, it's Bryce. It wasn't pretty, but definitely take the win. Some thoughts. He says, let me give credit to Matt Canada and this offense on its best game of the year season. While it definitely wasn't a mess-free game by any means, i.e. that horrible goal line sequence with the Watt shuffle pass, yuck. There was more mix of play action on first downs, more slants and better route combos, and use of bunch sets to get guys free. Here's my question, since it seems that Kenny is capable of making quick, decisive reads and getting the ball to the right guy, should the Steelers be using more empty sets on some of these second and long situations to get the ball out and into the hands of the playmakers to make up ground? Your thoughts. Okay, guys, help me understand something. How much power do you think assistant coaches have when getting some of these head coaches to manage the clock better? I mean, Jeff Saturday was all-time yuck at the end of the game. Doesn't someone have to really push the coach to be more aware and do better in those situations?
Yeah, for the clock management stuff, I mean, you're just kind of watching a young coach that was coaching high school football a couple weeks ago have those issues. And first-time head coaches, Nathaniel Hackett had that early in the year in Denver. That seems to be part of those, head coaches have growing pains too. They make mistakes, or they're not perfect, and the expectations are always high for those guys. But, that's part of the process of make mistakes, learn, and try to get better.
As far as, I thought, Matt, what do you think overall play call? I thought play calling for the most part was, like I said in the other show, I mean, there's a good 7-8 plays I take issue with there, but I thought for the most part, Matt called an okay game.
Yeah, it wasn't bad. You know what I forgot to mention with the offensive all-22? How about the run scheme crunch? They call that crunch, where it's like two wham blocks where you got the tight end ear holding the D tackle and one of the guards ear holding the other D tackle, which I've never seen in Pittsburgh before. So different run schemes. They've literally run every scheme that you can run this year. So that's more of probably a Pat Meyer thing as the O-line coach, de facto run game coordinator, but crunch, not something I've seen on tape before in Pittsburgh. Yeah.
Did you point that out on Twitter or no?
I did. Yeah. It's in my timeline. Some people also call it, and this is a better term, they call it wham bam, which is a much funnier and much better name than crunch, but whatever you want to call it, the clip's on Twitter.
All right. Empty sets and Kenny.
So the question is, should they be using more empty sets?
Yeah, and he says because making quick, decisive reads. Kenny's still got some ways to go, I think, in some of these in with these reads and all.
Yeah, I think in a quick, decisive reads at empty or not. I guess I get the point overall, but I mean, there's pros and cons, and I mean, I don't know. It depends on a lot of factors. With the way these teams are putting linebackers in A gaps and really stressing protection, I'm kind of a little less fan of empty, because if you're in empty and teams are mugging, then that's how you get things like the sack and Ngakoue had on that third down.
Have we seen any really good? How many real good 2-minute drills has Kenny had since he's been in here? To let's say close out the first half.
Well, I think the Bengals game last week was a good one. I mean, I think the Bengals got some time back. I think they were after the Steelers scored, but I think lately you've seen some good situational football from him.
And the opening drives have been decent.
Kicking field goals, at least, it's better than nothing, I suppose. It's still, I think what Cam Hayward talked about, we discussed Tuesday briefly. I think the red zone play has actually been better, but some of that red zone fringe where they get to like the 30, the 25, and they stall out. You got the James Pierre interception. You don't come away with any points there. You got the Bengals game, ball at 34, those kind of things. You're punting instead of even getting field goal attempts. So working on getting into the red zone when you're kind of on the fringes is something to note.
Right. I mean, I suppose they could, but I mean, they're not getting anything out of guys like Sims and Gunnar Olszewski or anything like that,
Right. Nothing. So that's why I think Frymu should basically be the literal slot receiver of this team.
All right. Anything else in here? I'm not seeing anything, Alex, overall here. So that's perfect time to call this a show, and we'll be back on Friday, and hopefully with a Falcons beat writer going over the injury report. The first injury report of week 13 will be out later today. I would imagine Najee's probably not going to work on that. We'll see what happens with Jaylen Warren and start getting a better picture of how this team sits from a health standpoint here later this afternoon. We'll have a lot to talk about previewing the Falcons game, obviously, on Friday as well, too. We'll give you our weekly picks and everything that goes goes along with that. So in the meantime, you can follow me on Twitter at Steelers Depot. Follow Alex on Twitter at Alex_Kozora. Follow the show at Terrible Podcast. Email the show, theterriblepodcast@gmail.com. If you like what we do and want to donate to the cause, go to SteelersDepot.com, hit the donate button, please. Also, if you like an ad-free version of the site, go to the Steelers Depot, hit the ad-free button up top and follow the directions there. So good job, Alex. Enjoyed it. Until Friday, as always, thanks for listening to the Terrible Podcast with Dave and Alex.